So, I have decided to relaunch a concept. So many concepts, so many impetuses, beautiful brandings and ideas and projects. And too many of them lie inert, either in my mind, in a notebook, on some backup drive somewhere. So I had this project a little while ago called I Heart Apocalypse with my friend Ben Gelly. And the concept was, this is actually before 2012, before the end of the world, we thought, wow, we're just going to do a bit of doomsday prepping, but make it fun, make it exciting. There is a certain aliveness to that whole catastrophe idea. And so we actually filmed one. It was the idea of how to get to your car if there's a zombie outside. And I really like this concept of teaching survivalist or just emergency procedures in the fun narrative of an apocalypse. And, you know, in today's unrest and all these different upheavals and collapses happening, the concept of apocalypse, I mean, it can be taken to, you know, science fiction dimensions, but there's also a very real element of our world's collapsing, and for many people around the world it has collapsed. Their homes have been shattered by bombs. They are relocating. There has been various diseases there. I mean, these things are happening. Maybe not to us sitting here in the safety of our social media realm, but the world, I believe, won't have one unified, you know, controlled demolition. Instead, it can have cracks, and like anything in the universe, there's balance. There is collapsing and there's rising, and unfortunately, many of our systems, our economic systems, have that built into it, where there are certain collapses or imbalances that we leverage off so that we can go higher. This horrible, malnourished, impoverished / bloated, overfed seesaw that we are often benefiting from. However, there can be some personal way of bringing that balance, and it came to me this morning while reading a poem that was shared by Latan, and the penmanship was done by Laura Weaver. So thank you, Laura, for your amazing words. The poem goes like this: there is a place within that cannot be destroyed by flood or fire, by bloodthirsty armies or devastating illness. It is this untouchable essence of us that quakes with irrepressible light, and bears the intolerable weight of all that must be felt to awaken. When I first remembered myself after surgery, my own name strange, both of my breasts removed, I did not feel loss nor grief, but a love. So ferocious it rolled through me like thunder bringing healing rain. After that came a knowing of my own wholeness beyond any story, beyond any dismemberment. This revelation of our luminous body that remains intact in spite of all our sacred shatterings. And yes, now the landscape is unrecognizable. Yes, now there is no old path to go back to. Yes, now there is a quivering arrow of this moment piercing the heart, the illusion of invulnerability stripped away, laid bare to this truth. And so it is. And so we are. I was shown this world from the distant shores of it. Before I came to this life, I was shown this world from the distant shores of it, and in that moment I saw the full arc of my days here, the exquisite range of this embodied dreaming. Oh, how beautiful, I cried. Oh, how terrible. Oh, this terrible beauty. And the angel who guided me simply pointed and nodded and said, yes. So that was the poem that I read. And it reminded me of the experiences that I've personally had in the moments and in the, unlearning. That's what the School of Unlearning is all about. Allowing to let fall away, shedding the protective layers, the fearful predictive steps we take to ensure that this illusion, the social construct, remains intact, because it is predictable, because we have been born into and educated and indoctrinated into the functions, and we know our role, and we have seen before people interacting with this particular system, and we can therefore predict the various outcomes if we take a certain course of action. And yet that insulation, I believe, is a deadening. And in those moments when it crumbles, this sounds like an absolutely horrific incident that this woman has gone through. However, that knowing of her own wholeness, beyond any story, is an enlivening. There is an amazing human capacity to lift ourselves back up. And we see it time and time again in emergencies when all the social prejudices and all these artifices just fall away because we want to help each other. We remember our humanity. And that's why, unfortunately, it takes sometimes these devastating events for people to come together. I mean, I often think if there was some kind of alien attack, all the racism would go out the window, gender, all that kind of stuff, ageism. It'd be like, let's get together. Oh my God, we have now another. We have the enemy. We're always looking for that other. We're always separating ourselves out. It really doesn't matter how large or small we take that view. I mean, I've been involved in very small kind of little niche art elements, and even within that, I mean, in Australia, the art scene is not really big enough to divide itself, and yet it still can. If you find some niche, like, oh, I do underwater spoken word in reverse, even in that little niche group, there'll be some group, well, I do that in blue water, well, I do it while eating popcorn. We always seem to want to find a niche, a separatist, an other, to somehow give legitimacy to the definition we give ourselves. The point being, there is some revivification post-dismantling. If these things crumble and we are knocked, had the breath knocked out of us, there is some coming back to self. Because if we are identifying with those things that we're holding on, those pieces of armor, we are to some degree not connecting with that core rawness. And when they are shed and we're still there, we go, oh, wait, that wasn't me. And so we are made to recontextualize and reassess who we are. So my recommendation for personal rebalancing in this time of unbalance is actually programming in or planning for moments of upheaval. And even if it's just 10 minutes a day, it can be something like a daily practice. But how can we absolutely expose ourselves to the truth and to something that doesn't rely on the story we've constructed thus far? One simple example was not simple, it took a month to do, but I went across Australia with 2 other friends, not using any money, and it was the concept of, can we do it from nothing? Simply from being a human being, talking to another human being. And we did. We got across the great continent of Australia. It took us a month to do it, and we traded poetry or help or stories or cooked people meals or slept on the street or hitchhiked or did whatever we had to do. And so that was, a mini apocalypse. That was a personal choice to go without money for that time. And then I wanted to take it to another step further, so I did it by myself across America. So I literally walked out of the States without a dollar in my pocket. So not the States, I walked out of New York City. And then I found myself about 3 weeks later in Los Angeles. Similar practice of hitchhiking, of exchanging various things. And then, I'm an artist, so my currency was poetry. I made someone a website. I did a window installation for another shop. And we worked out the ways that we had value as I exchanged with people. The point is, when you have the crumbling, when there is that mini personal apocalypse, we have, as was articulated in this beautiful poem, the revelation of our luminous body. And we do see that the beauty and the tragedy, oh, this terrible beauty. I mean, the human story currently is one that is like sour wine tears. It's got so much heartache and heartbreak. And I'm reading a book at the moment called Reality is Broken by Jane McGonigal, and it's about game design and how games can make our life better and viewing life as a game. And it's a funny human characteristic that when we are at that point of failure, we can actually have a sudden surge of life, whether it be trying to fight to not lose, or even post-failure, we reflect and we have hope for next time I'm going to do it better. We learn from my mistake, and there's a hope for improving, for getting better, to overcoming that thing, to having victory where previously there was failure. And I think when things are too easy, when they're too mundane, we get deadened, we get bored, we get hemmed in, and we actually start looking for problems. We want some kind of challenge. And so we'll start picking fights with our friends, we'll start just picking ourselves, gouging our eyes out, self-hate, all this kind of thing. We need to get out there. There's enough problems out there without constructing and making it our own. And I think if we really tear it off and have these crumblings, get out there, don't eat for a day. Fasting is actually physically quite beneficial, or go without money, or walk into a shop and talk to a stranger. It's scary, but these are the crumblings I'm talking about. Going up and there's judgment. I mean, even for myself, I've done it so many times, and every time I'm going to break that social veneer and busk or walk and do a performance art thing in the city or talk to someone on the train or whatever it is, there's still that moment of shedding, because there's this concept of, as a man, are they going to be intimidated? Are they going to think that I'm just trying to pick them up? All this kind of noise, and it's allowing that to crumble and coming back to the simplicity and calmness of the fact that I'm just a human being. You're just a human being. All other things are labels. You're not a stranger. You're not a woman. I'm not an aggressor. I'm not asking for money. All these other things fall like autumn's leaves when we're just standing here, looking at each other and going, oh yeah, we're human beings sharing a story. Thank you for being in this space with me. Isn't this crazy? In this huge timeline of history and this amazing geographic conglomerate that is Earth, and this massive surface we could be scattered across, we happen to align in the serendipitous moment right here. We can look eye to eye and go, and share something. What are we going to share? Right here. And in that moment of rawness, as was said here, you'll start to see, even though you're in the moment, you'll start to pull out and witness this full arc. Oh, how beautiful, oh, how terrible. It's a full arc, viewing it as though from those distant shores. And there is this amazing moment of subjective and objectivity, where you see the wholeness in a single moment, an intense moment of living. I heart apocalypse. Bring down the walls.